bit difficult. So here I want to discuss the need for studying this subject. First of all, because you are taking the power system operation and control, so I will give you the overview of all the 5 units. So why you want to study these contents, where it is used, because always while studying the syllabus, where because you will be in a hurry, because this semester very short period of time, and anyhow the end semester commences only from May 22nd. So you may have some plenty of study holidays. So you can replace those things effectively. So to create some interest, because you have to memorize, okay, this is what I am going to study, or I have studied in this subject, what is the use. So that is the point where I want to give the highlight of all the 5 units, why they have framed this syllabus for electrical engineering students. So to start with, assume that you have to operate a power system. So what you have to do, you have to operate a power system. So to start with, to establish anything with respect to the power system, what is the first prime step? What's your idea? Or assume that you are the operator already, now you are appointed as an operator in the energy control center. So your duty is to monitor and control, operate the entire power system. So what you will do, what is your first step? Do you know that or not? Today they are calling you and tomorrow they are appointing with some 1 lakh salary, whether you will be saying that yes, I will operate, or you will say no. You will say yes or no? Yes. Immediately you will say yes. So what you have to do now? First, what is the first step? The first step in the power system is forecasting the load demand. Already I think in the unit 1, you might have studied load forecasting, what is the need for load forecasting, what are the different types of load forecastings are available. The basic type of load forecasting is predicting the future demand. Future demand in the sense, first you have to predict the future demand in 2030. For example, you have to predict the demand in what? 2030, not tomorrow or day after tomorrow. That is called long-term planning. What is that? Long-term planning. What is the use of that long-term planning? Why you want to predict the load demand in 2030? All of you are much aware about the Kudankulam nuclear power station. We have started in 1998. So far it is not completely commenced. Am I correct or wrong? So what is the duration? Almost now it may be going to 20 years. So to commit to erect any generating station, the minimum period of time required will be about 10 years. Are you able to follow? Not. Suppose if somebody is saying there is a power shortage, immediately within a year or within a month you cannot start the power station. It is very difficult. It will take minimum 5 to 10 years. Why that 5 to 10 years means? Sometimes they will add annexure 1, annexure 2. If you go to Neyveli 1, Neyveli thermal power station 2, like that, they will have some extension. There are already some sophisticated facilities, substations, many things will be there. So they can start within some 5 years. But if you are starting now in a remote location, then it will take minimum of 10 years. So as an operator, what is your first requirement? Load forecasting. That is one of the important topic in unit 1. And in the load forecasting, if you are classifying broadly, first one is long-term load forecasting. 1 year ahead up to some 10 or 15 years, you have to forecast the load demand. So after forecasting, what you have to do? You have to erect the generating stations to meet out the load in 2030. And you know very well, before studying this power system operation and control, we have studied power system analysis. In the power system analysis itself, where you will be starting with the objective of power system, or the familiar informations, whoever is coming from foreign countries, if there is a power cut, immediately what is their response? Have you heard or not? What they will say? You take any one foreign country, suppose if any of your friends or relatives are coming back, and if they are seeing these kind of power cuts, what is their response immediately? They will say, we never saw power cuts in our country. Are able to follow? Or yearly once, some 1 hour, 2 hours for some maintenance purpose. So if anyone is saying that it is a power system, the objective of the power system is to match the generation and the demand minute by minute. If there is a regular power cut, then you should not call this as a power system. You can call like a standalone system. It is not an integrated power system. Why? since 2007, we have regular power cuts up to date. Am I correct or wrong? May not be there in the metro cities or some other cities, but while coming to the urban villages also, still they may be facing the power cut for a duration of 4 hours or 5 hours. I think now also, if there is no election, then you have to also face a lot of problems. But they are now very careful. What they are doing every day, they are buying about 4,000 megawatt from other states. They are able to follow by paying huge amount. They will not bother. They have money, they have to spend and so on. So they are buying about 4,000 megawatt now itself, because now it is like other commodity. So they will go for contract, you supply 4,000 megawatt, you will pay this much amount. They have already purchased. So until May 20th, you will not face any problem of power cut. It is ensured you can meet the power system objective. So power system means, what is the important term? We have to balance the generation and the load minute by minute. Even a single minute, if there is any deviation, it is very difficult for the operator. So now, as already I told you, for all these things, the first primary requirement is load forecasting. So if you are forecasting the load after 15 years, then you have to go for the commencement of generating station and the transmission lines. So that is the long-term planning process will be over. Then some short-term or mid-term load forecasting will be the mid-term load forecasting, in the sense where normally it is used for some maintenance scheduling. We know the major type of generating stations available here in our state is, some of them were thermal and some of them were hydro, and the remaining like nuclear or some other stations are available. What is this maintenance schedule? Because you may not be able to operate all the generators throughout the 365 days and continuously. Regular maintenance is required. So for such an issue, if you have hundreds of generators, so every week where you have to plan maintenance scheduling for one particular generator. And apart from that, where we have to go for hydrothermal scheduling. What is meant by hydrothermal scheduling? While going for power generation from thermal, coal-fired thermal stations, so there is no other issue. But if you are coming to the hydro stations, like Mettur, few hydro stations are available, and like in Ooty, some 5 or 6 hydro stations are available. Wherever we have some reservoirs, water reservoirs, we have erected many of the hydro stations. Unlike thermal stations, if you want to generate power from the hydro station, where the proper planning is required. What is the proper planning? Because while releasing the water, based on the other requirement, mainly for irrigation and drinking water. So only during those times you have to generate the power. Whenever you want power, simply you cannot release the water. For able to follow, if it is a hydro station, just like that you cannot release the water to generate power. So there will be some interdependent, that is, if they are, for example, in the month of June, if anyone is reading the newspaper regularly, they will announce for this period of agricultural cultivation, where they are releasing water from Mettur dam. So then only you can operate your hydro station. So operation of hydro station is not in your control. So, but there will be a periodic variations where with the past you have the experience, and based on your load forecasting, all those things, you have to schedule accordingly how to manage. They are able to follow. So for such things, you have to forecast load demand 1 year ahead of time, and you can balance your thermal and hydro throughout the year. Then the last one is short term. What is short term? For example, so every day they will plot the load curve. For example, today the operator will be ready with the load curve for tomorrow's 24 hours. The 24-hour interval will be divided into half an hour interval or 1 hour interval. Normally, broadly, we will take 1 hour interval. So today midnight it will start. And for every hour, where they will forecast the load demand. For every hour, they will forecast the load demand. So by this time, the operator might have forecasted the load demand for next 24-hour interval from midnight to midnight. So he will plot the load curve. Then with that load curve, what is the next step he will do? So far, the load forecasting process is over. You are able to visualize what is load forecasting, what is the use of that? Or simply, suppose if you have the vision, what is the peak demand so far in our state? Are you aware about the peak demand here in our state? It is about 14,000 to 15,000 megawatt. I think by this May or June, even it may cross 15,000 megawatt also. So that means that 15,000 megawatt will not be constant throughout the day. For example, at midnight it may be some 6,000 megawatt, 12 to 1, then 1 to 2, 6,500. Then it may be almost near constant up to some 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock, most of them they will start their day-to-day work. So from 5 onwards it will increase. And one process is there, that is morning peak. By 8 to 9:30 or 8 to 10, where normally we used to get the morning peak. Then once again it will decrease until some 3 to 4, where it will be of a minimum. Then once again evening peak will arise in between evening some 6 to 11. Because we have a lot of life cycle changes. Normally in the textbook, in the olden days, we used to study that evening peak will occur in between some 5 to 7. But now what happens? Now here in Chennai, the evening peak occurs about 10:30. You are able to visualize? Normally in the summer days, the evening peak occurs only at 10:30 because we have changed our life cycle. We are going to bed only by 9:30 or 10:30. So we will be using most of the air conditioning equipment only during that time. So it is consuming huge amount of power. So likewise, every day where the actual demand is known to the operator, and with that he will keep some database and he will use some algorithms, and with that he will forecast the tomorrow's load demand. For example, what is the yesterday's important event where we had a cricket match. So if such matches are there, he has to forecast the demand based on that input also. They are able to follow. So while going for load forecasting, you will not give some deterministic method where exactly it will give some values. You have to consider all the factors. So you have to take similar day. So during the similar day in the similar season, if it is India-Pakistan match or if it is India-Bangladesh match, what is the load demand requirement? Then he has to schedule accordingly. So after forecasting the load demand for 24 hours, the next immediate step for the operator is preparing the unit commitment schedule. Preparing the unit commitment schedule. What is unit commitment schedule? What is your idea? Already you might have covered or when it is covered. What is unit commitment? What is the basic idea? What is the output of your unit commitment program? First we will start from this end. What is the output of your unit commitment program? It will give the on-off status. It will give the on-off status for all the thermal generators, because in your syllabus you will be studying only the thermal generators. So the output of the unit commitment program is on-off status of all the thermal generators. Suppose if you have 10 generators are there, if you have 10 generators, then you have to see from midnight 12 to 1, what all the generators will be turned on and what all the generators will be turned off. Why we have to turn on few generators? Why we have to turn off some other generators? Because for every hour we have some forecasted load demand. Yes, so if you take our state, I told you, midnight normally it will be about 6,000 to 7,000 megawatt. Midnight by 12 to 1. So you cannot turn on all the generators. If you are turning on all the generators, what will happen? Where you have to run the machines with the loss, because all the generators will be operating at a lightly loaded condition, means the efficiency will be very poor, and economically it is not a viable solution. So you have to see that what all the generators will be turned on for some particular interval of the unit commitment process. It may be of 24-hour intervals, or it may be of 48 intervals with half-an-hour slots, or it may be even 6 intervals. You can take some 4-hour slot. If you are assuming that the loads are almost constant, even you can go for 4-hour duration of intervals also. So that is immaterial. But whatever may be the interval duration, during that period, you have to keep ready enough generators. Why we have to keep ready enough generators? It is not like other devices. Simply by turning on the switch, you cannot generate the power. Suppose if you want to start a thermal generator, I think you might have studied about startup cost, startup time. What is the time required to start the thermal generator? It requires about some 3 to 6 hours. You have to burn the fuel, you have to bring the boiler temperature and pressure to the required level. Then with that standard pressure and temperature, if you are releasing the steam to the turbine where you can start the power generation, then you have to synchronize the machine to the grid. So it requires about 3 to 6 hours of time period depending on the capacity, the other type of requirements. So if you need that much duration, you have to plan that on-off status carefully. Why? You can't say that this hour you turn on and next hour you turn off. Are you able to follow? So on and off, turn off and turn on times are very, very important. For example, while entering into this room by 2 o'clock, immediately you are turning on all the AC air conditioning equipment. We are not bothering. Within a minute, we are able to turn on all these devices. But once if these devices are consuming power, to meet up this demand, some of the generators cannot be turned on immediately. You are able to follow? So the operator has to ready. How he can be ready? He has to forecast, and with the forecasted demand, he will maintain the generators in on condition, so that whenever you are turning on your loads, immediately we are able to receive the power from that. They are able to follow the unit commitment. What is unit commitment problem? For each interval, you have to commit enough number of generators such that during that particular interval, you will be ready to deliver the required load demand. And the load demand is non-constant. That we will come to the regulation, frequency regulation. But before coming to the frequency regulation, we have to commit the enough number of generators so that operator will not face any problem while during that particular time. Because at that time he cannot make a phone call to any of the power station. Some load demand is keep on increasing. To please turn on some generator. They will say, sir, it requires another 3 to 5 hours. Now immediately he cannot meet out. So that is the requirement for the unit commitment problem. And here many constraints are there. For example, by midnight to 12 o'clock, if you want to turn on the machine, how much it is costly? Because you need some crew members, some 10 people or 20 people of skilled laborers may be required, some engineers may be required. Am I correct or wrong? So it is very difficult to plan or prepare the on-off standard. It is not a simple process. That's why in other countries, if you are considering some of the foreign countries, where because of these problems, nowadays in the foreign countries, the logic behind the power system is entirely different. Here we are having the monopoly system. Monopoly means where government is generating power and it is applying to all the consumer with a fixed tariff. Am I correct or wrong? While consuming power at any point of time, have you bothered whether it is a peak period or it is off-peak period? We never bothered. Am I correct or wrong? But to solve these problems, what they did, instead of having a vertically integrated power system, now they went for horizontal or restructured power system. In the restructured power system, they are treating power is also like a other commodity. Power is also like a other commodity. Suppose if you want to buy a mobile phone, so you may have some specific visions. You may be interested in Apple, iPhones, or Samsung, or some other Nokia, or whatever may be the thing. And apart from that, while going to the shop, you will have some interest in some specific shops like Purvika or some other shop. Am I correct or wrong? So likewise, they are selling the power also. They are able to follow. You can purchase power from anyone. There is no restriction that you have to buy only power from some specific generators or some companies. N number of generating companies will be generating power, and if you are making an agreement to pay the money, they will deliver the power. And what is the problem they are facing while coming to the unit commitment? Why I am saying those things? Suppose if it is the midnight, assume that you have some 1000 megawatt generator. What is your generator rating? 1000 megawatt. If you are unable to sell the power during that midnight 12 to 1, you are unable to sell the power. So what you should do ultimately? You have to turn off. You are able to follow? You are owning a generator. That generator rating is 1000 megawatt. And if you are able to sell the power, at least some minimum, assume that minimum capacity is, PG minimum is 200 megawatt. At least if you are able to sell some 200 megawatt, you can synchronize your machine to the grid. Some situation is there where you are able to sell only 100 megawatt. You are able to follow? Some of the customers are coming to you, they are ready to buy power of 100 megawatt. But what is the minimum power generated from your generator? 200. But if you are generating 200 where the operator will not accept. No, you have the agreement only for 100, you reduce 100 megawatt. But practically he cannot reduce it. So what he will do, he will make some announcement. Whoever is consuming my power of 100 megawatt, I will pay some amount. You are able to follow? So whoever is consuming my power, he will say I will pay the money for you. So if you are ready at that time, you can consume so that you can utilize power and also you can receive some money. You are able to follow? So such kind of difficulties are there if you are going for a deregulated power system. But here also in our country, on paper already for the past 5 years, we have deregulated power system because nowadays we don't have the TNEB. Nowadays we don't have TNEB. You will not see such a TNEB symbol or abbreviation anywhere. Now we have only TANGEDCO, Tamil Nadu Generation and Distribution Companies, and TRANSCO, Tamil Nadu Transmission Company. Everything is privatized. But with that also we are unable to implement the market model. So far there is no much improvement in that. But in near future, those things may be implemented here also. Definitely it will take place. So these are the informations about the unit commitment. So unit commitment means that the operator has to prepare the on-off status for the generator for next 24 hours. Are you able to visualize this? So for that you have to formulate some objective function and some of the constraints, whatever the constraints are available, all those things you have to satisfy. With that you will get the output as on-off status. Is there any specific doubt for you? So after preparing the unit commitment, next you will come to the real time. In the real time, as already in the power system analysis itself, where we have studied that objective of power system is to deliver power to the consumer without any interruption, and at the same time, minute by minute you have to balance it. There should not be excess generation or there should not be any deficit in generation. So while coming to this real time, so what is the role of operator after unit commitment? While coming to the real time, he has to carry out the economic dispatch. He has to carry out the economic dispatch. So from the name itself, from the word economic dispatch itself, while delivering the power, the total cost should be minimum. So that is the concept. What is the economic dispatch? While delivering the power to the consumer, the total cost of generation should be minimum. So how to reduce the total cost? That is the problem formulated with respect to the economic dispatch. So for each generator, where there will be a specific cost function. What is the cost function? If you are generating a minimum of some 10 megawatt, this is the cost requirement. 20 megawatt, this is the cost requirement. So for each value of power, where there will be a cost that can be calculated by using the cost function. So in the real time, for example, I am the operator now, from 3 to 4, where now for every hour there will not be any abrupt variation. Suppose now by 2:30, if it is some 9000 megawatt, by 3 o'clock it will not go to some 14,000 megawatt. Maximum some 500 to some 1000 megawatt variations will be there. So that means predicting those variations where I have to optimally generate power from the committed generators. First I am completing the unit commitment. Already some of the generators were turned on and some were turned off. While coming to the economic dispatch, what is the process? With the committed units, I have to decide from each generator how much power I have to supply. Because some of the generators output will be of more costly when compared to some other generator. So you have to see that while meeting the load demand, the total cost is minimum. That is also one of the simplest problem which is covered in most of the questions. So you be thorough with finding the economic dispatch with some 2 generators or 3 generators for some specific loading condition. So So you are able to visualize these two scenarios: load forecasting, unit commitment, economic dispatch. Now we will come to the other one of the important and tedious problem. So as already I told you, you are getting the job in the energy control center as an operator, and you are forecasting, you have committed, everything is over. But while coming to the actual load, it is not constant. If you are taking an interval, it is not constant. Even if you are taking some 5 minutes interval, within that 5 minutes also always there will be some fluctuation. So how to generate or how to balance the fluctuating load demand? One of the perennial problem while coming to the electrical engineering is storage. We cannot store the electrical power. But if you are not storing the electrical power, for example, while turning on this air conditioning equipment, whether you have informed to anyone, now I am going to turn on some 5 air conditioning equipment. No, simply you are turning on and you are consuming it. So before 1 minute, all these devices were in turn off condition. After a minute, these things were turned on. So here itself we are running some 5 kilowatt loads. We are able to follow within a minute where within this campus itself where there is a fluctuation of 5 kilowatt. So this 5 kilowatt, how will be generated immediately from the generator? So that is one of the complex problem. But to address this complex problem where there is one of the greater flexibility in terms of real power and frequency. There is a strong coupling between the real power and frequency. There is a strong coupling between real power and frequency. What is that strong coupling? For example, suppose if I am asking you, now you check in our grid whether the generation is excess of load demand or it is equal to load demand or it is less than load demand. Can you check it or not?
It is excess.
Now by 220, what is the power? I am asking in the real time. Now what is the time? It is 220. By 220 or 230, suppose if I am asking you, you find out in the Tamil Nadu whether now generation is more, less or equal to load demand. How to find out that? You cannot say less than. I am asking now at present. You don't think that you are giving some answers for some assumed values. Now, by 230, what is the condition? 231, what is the condition? Can you answer for that? So if it is not possible, as an operator, how will you balance that? You are saying that you can't find out. If you are unable to find out, how will you balance the total generation and demand? How will you balance it? As one of the simple example I told you, even here in this room itself, within a minute, we have turned on load equipment about 5 kilowatt. But we are not informing to anyone. We are not informing to the operator, you please generate more power because we want to consume more power here. We have not informed anywhere. Or after 1 hour we will turn off these devices. At the time we are not informing them to reduce the power generation. And the other thing, there is no storage. So irrespective of this, how the operator is balancing. So for that purpose only, real power and frequency control is essential. Or we are utilizing the relations between the real power and frequency. But a simple example I used to address the students. Consider a shaft. Where there is a wall which, between these two portions of this shaft. This is a very huge shaft. And on one side, assume that there is some 100 kg load. How much load? 100 kg load. On the other side, assume that you are standing here, where there is a provision to rotate this by your hand. Suppose I am asking you to rotate this shaft at 50 rpm, where there is a speedometer, it will display the speed, and you are rotating by your hand. Is it possible for you to rotate at 50 rpm or not? Assume that you have sufficient stamina to rotate that. So, by looking into the speedometer, suppose when the speed is less than 50 rpm, what you will do? You will give more push, and if it is exceeding 50 rpm, then you will reduce it. So you will maintain this constant speed of 50 rpm. Assume that the load is constant, so maintaining constant speed will be much easy for you. Now suddenly somebody is removing 10 kg from that. It is not informed because you are on the other side, you don't know what is happening on the other side. Somebody is removing some 10 kg and you are rotating for some half an hour. So whether you will look into the speedometer, you will give some constant input and it will be revolving at 50, you will not bother. When the weight is removed, if you are giving the same input, what will happen to the reading? It will go beyond 50. Suppose if the speed is going beyond 50, what is the conclusion? Somebody has removed the load. Somebody has removed the load. And after some time, few minutes, somebody is adding some 20 kg. Now it will become 110. So what will happen now? Speed will decrease. Speed will decrease. So you will think that somebody has added load, so I have to increase more force. So I have to give more force so that I can bring the speed to 50 ampere. You are able to relate this. This is the relation between the power demand and the frequency. Or we used to say there is a strong coupling between the real power and the frequency. Or what you might have studied that as the PF control. What you have studied that as the power frequency control. So in a power system, if you visit that energy control center or LD center in the Mount Road office, the room size is only like this. There are also some 5 ACs are there. Operator will be always looking like this. What he is looking? Where there will be a frequency display board. What is the frequency display board? Suppose if the frequency display is showing that frequency is 50 Hz. What is the conclusion for the operator? If frequency is 50 Hz, what is the conclusion? The total generation, whatever is the total generation, he may not know what is the total generation. He cannot quantify it. He cannot say now the generation is some 100 megawatt, 500 megawatt. Whatever will be the generation, it is exactly equal to the total demand plus loss. Are you able to visualize this concept? Then, suppose if the frequency is falling below to 49.5 Hz. If it is falling to 49.5 Hz, what is his reaction? He will make call to some of the generating stations if excess generation is available. He will ask to increase some 100 megawatt or 200 megawatt so that the frequency will be coming back to the nominal value of 50 Hz. Suppose if the frequency is above 50 Hz, what is the conclusion? Immediately he will drop. So now the generation is in excess of demand plus loss. So he will ask some of the generators to reduce. Are you able to follow? So this is the mechanism of load frequency control. Even though the power system is a very complex one. Why it is very complex one? No one knows what is the generation, what is the demand, what is the loss. Without knowing these things, they are able to match the total generation with the total demand and the loss. Even while solving the power flow problem, why we are assuming one of the bus as the slack bus? We cannot predict the losses until the convergence. So that much difficulty even while solving the problem itself. That means in the real time, is it possible to predict the losses? It is impossible. Is it possible to measure the loads? The entire state is covered, total geographical area is covered for delivering with the lot of loads. Is it possible to measure the load? Impossible. So irrespective of that, minute by minute, where the operator can draw the conclusion, what is the demand level, less than generation, more than generation or equal to the generation. That is the one of the advantage with the power system. Suppose if this relation is not there, it may be of too complicated one. Am I correct or wrong? Because in a single phase he is able to maintain the power balance. Extremely difficult problem, but we are able to solve it in an easiest way. Then the other one, while coming to the frequency regulation, you might have studied what is the need for frequency regulation. Some standard points will be there. You know, I think already that points you might have studied in the unit 2. What is the permitted frequency fluctuations? What is the permitted frequency variation? According to the IEEE standard, where it is plus or minus 1%. If it is plus or minus 1%, What is the permitted deviation? You can go from 49.5 Hertz to 50.5 Hertz. But here in our country, where we are maintaining much better regulation than the IEEE standard. You can measure the frequency at any point of time. It will not be below 49.65 and it will not exceed 50.25. Are you able to follow? We are maintaining better frequency. Even we are having better than the IEEE standards. IEEE standard permits plus or minus 0.5 Hertz. But here we have very strict regulation on the frequency. You can measure the frequency at any point of time, which will be fluctuating only in between 49.65 Hertz to 50.2. But before 2000, you ask to any of the EV engineers, they will say that before 2000, where they will maintain the frequency about 47.5 Hertz. They will not increase above that. Why they will not increase? Why they will not increase? For example, the same shaft, it is running for some 200 meters. The same shaft is running for 200 meters. Assume that there are 4 rooms. So this shaft is running for 4 rooms. One end where you are rotating this shaft. Are you able to follow? And the other end, some of your friends are rotating. And in between 2 rooms, one room some 100 kg weight is there, in the other room some 200 kg weight is there. But this shaft has some finite stiffness. It is not having infinite stiffness. That you have to assume. You are able to follow. If it is having infinite stiffness, then you cannot quantify it. Assume that some finite stiffness is there. And as you know very well, because it is running for a long distance with some finite stiffness. So assume that your load is 100 kg. So accordingly you will rotate this shaft. The other person where the load is about 200, accordingly he will rotate the shaft. But where it is not completely isolated, where there is some shaft with a finite stiffness. So at the time what they did, so what I can do, I will think, if I am rotating at rated speed, some amount of energy may be utilized by my neighbor. They are able to visualize? Even though it is having some finite stiffness, definitely he will get some benefit. And the other person also, he will think in the same way. We are able to visualize that. So, like our state Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Karnataka, they will have the competition in reducing the frequency. Why they have to reduce? So that the other person will pump the power to my loads. We are able to achieve this concept. So that's why so far, where until some 2000, all the power stations always they will operate with reduced frequency, so that they will assume that if the other states are generating more power, that will enter into our state. Everyone will follow the competition, and the studies shows that lot of rotating machines are getting damaged with the frequency fluctuations. So this Electricity Regulatory Act brought some strict norms. What is that norms? Where state electricity boards has to maintain the frequency in between 49.65 Hz to 50.2 Hz. So that is the first hurdle. So from then onwards, where we have frequent power cut. From then onwards, what happens? Frequent power cut. Are you able to visualize this point? So why we have frequent power cut? Normally, if you are violating that frequency norms for 10 minutes, where from the regional control center, one message will come. You are violating the frequency norms, and half an hour within some another 20 minutes, you are unable to rectify that frequency deviation. On the 30th minute, where there will be a message, you have to pay a penalty of how much you know? 1 crore. Our state electricity board used to pay about some 500 crores per year for violating the frequency norms. So they are unable to follow it because there is no money. So that's why now, what is the final option? They are going for load shedding. Otherwise, you connect some load, you will get the power at reduced frequency. You are able to follow. You will get power at a reduced frequency. The concept is very simple. Initially 100 kg is there. Somehow you are able to rotate at 100 RPM, let us say. If load is keep on increasing and you have limited force, is it possible to rotate this at 100 RPM? speed will decrease. So likewise in the olden days, whatever may be the load increase, that will be compensated by the dip in frequency, because most of the loads are frequency dependent load. Most of the loads are what? Frequency dependent load. What is frequency dependent load? If the frequency is 50 Hz, assume that load is consuming 100 megawatt. If the frequency falls to 49 Hz, the load, even though you are connecting 100 megawatt load, it will consume only some 95 megawatt. That is the frequency dependent loads. Most of the loads were frequency dependent loads. So if there is a reduction in frequency, accordingly there will be a reduced power consumption. You are able to visualize this? And now this is the overall picture. But in your syllabus, where you will be studying about two major concepts. One is speed changer and other one is speed governor. One is speed changer and other one is speed governor. What is speed changer? Now you have to come back to the economic dispatch. So as an operator, now you are giving the generation schedule for all the generators. Generator 1 generate some 80 megawatt. Generator 2 generate 120 megawatt. So this is your economic dispatch output. So how you will implement this? How you will implement this? You have to communicate this to the generators. So if it is communicated to the generator, how it will restrict? So there will be a speed changer. Operator will be sitting in front of the speed changer. It will be like a rotating wheel, like our clock, 0 to 100% will be there. If the generator rating is 200 megawatt, generator rating is what? 200 megawatt. You are receiving the information from the energy control center based on the economic dispatch program. Now this generator has to generate only 100 megawatt. So that the operator will move the needle. What he will do? He will move the needle to 50%. You are able to follow? You have scale 0 to 100. So if you want to generate 100 megawatt, what you have to do? You have to move to 50% of the speed changer setting. So what is the significance of that speed changer? If you are setting at 50 percentage, the valve will be opened 50 percentage. How much it will open? It will open 50 percentage. So that with the steam input, it will generate how much power? It will generate 100 megawatt. You are able to follow? And if the load is also 100 megawatt, where the frequency will be exactly 50 Hz. Are you able to visualize this? What is speed changer? Even I think you might have derived the block diagram models or the load frequency control. One of the part what you will be seeing, there will be speed changer, where there will be a thing, rise command and a lower command. Rise means where you will be opening the wall, and lower means you will be closing the walls, or it may be vice versa. I am not exactly sure. But this is the function of speed changer. So what is the function of speed changer? How much percentage you want to open the wall? That will be given by the speed changer. If you want to generate 10 megawatt, you open 10% if the rating is 100 megawatt generator. If it is a 200 megawatt generator, you want to 10 megawatt means you have to adjust the speed changer to 5%. Are you able to visualize this? What is speed changer? Then after the speed changer setting, because the frequency and the loads, these things are not constant or static quantities. Minute by minute, where there will be lot of fluctuations in the load, which will be reflected in the frequency. Continuous fluctuations will be there in the load demand, and that will be reflected in the frequency. But the operator cannot see the frequency, and he cannot communicate to the operator to adjust the speed changer frequently. Or that where there is a automatic control mechanism within the power plant, which is called as speed governing mechanism. What is that speed governing mechanism? Where based on your rotor speed, where you can increase or decrease the valve so that the frequency will be maintained near 50 Hz. So that is the requirement for the speed governor. The concept of speed governor is well known. For example, you take a string, tie this any one object, and if you are if you are rotating this at a lower speed, what will happen? It will be slowly rotating with small circle. Then if you are rotating with a huge force, where it will cover the entire circumference. So this concept which is employed in the speed governing mechanism. So when the speed increases, it will close the valve by moving downwards, and when the speed decreases, it will move upwards so that the valve will be opened more. Are you able to follow this? So speed changer is for permanent adjustment, and the speed governor will be from that point, whatever be the set points, from there it will track the output. So now while turning on the load, who is matching that load immediately? Speed governor, because speed changer will be adjusted only every 1 hour or half an hour, or it may be 15 minutes. But speed governor, minute by minute, it will track the load. How it is tracking? It will sense the speed. If there is any change in speed, accordingly it will open or close the valve. So you are able to get this concept. So only with these things you might have studied about load frequency. And here in the load frequency control, where you will be considering one more additional mechanism, that is tie line bias control. What is the difference between the ordinary transmission lines and the tie lines? We have transmission lines. Even while coming to this college, in the entrance itself, we are seeing many transmission lines. And some of the transmission lines will be called as tie lines, because those lines will be connecting to different states. How will you differentiate? This is tie line, this is transmission line. If it is a transmission line, no one will control the power flowing through the line. You are able to follow? Physical structure wise, transmission line, tie line, both are same. But while coming to the operation, if it is normal transmission lines which is going here and there within our city itself, where no one controls the power flowing through that line. But if it is a tie line where there will be a contractual agreement, for example, for 24 hours where there will be a contract from Tamil Nadu, 2 to 3, some 300 megawatt will flow from Tamil Nadu to Karnataka, 3 to 4, some 250 megawatt will flow from Tamil Nadu to Karnataka. So that also should be maintained. So for that purpose also, where these speed changer and speed governors are used in the closed loop control mechanism. Are able to follow these things? That means whatever will be the change, that will be absorbed by these speed changer and speed governor, and depending on your closed loop control mechanism, that will be adjusted. And already you might have studied about those speed governor and speed changer operation, development of block diagrams, all those things. Whether you have any specific doubt in those topics, sir, I am unable to visualize this point. This is not able to acceptable. Whether you have any such opinions? No idea. Then one more other important topic. So real power and reactive power. Real power and reactive power. See, don't assume that something real power means and something reactive power. How to use? Because most of the thing we are not visualizing. Only based on the imaginations we are studying it. The simple concept behind this real power and reactive power. The real power alone is consumed by the loads for doing the useful work. What is real power? Real power alone is consumed by the loads for doing the useful work. Then that alone is sufficient. Why we are having the problem of reactive power? So here in our AC network, if it is DC, then there is no problem, only resistance will be there. In AC network, we have inductance and the capacitance. While transferring real power from one point to the other point, you need voltage support. So at the sending end and at the receiving end, where you have to maintain the voltage, then only the real power will be transferred. So while coming to that point, if you want to maintain the voltage, where there is a need for the reactive power, why it is required? Because that will be circulating between the inductor and the capacitor. It is nowhere consumed. Only it will be flowing back and forth. It will flow from inductor to the capacitor and capacitor to the inductor. It is not consumed anywhere. Then what is the drawback of the reactive power? You have to minimize the reactive power flow. Whatever may be the loading condition, you may have 8,000 megawatt of demand, or you may have some 20,000 megawatt of demand. To transfer this generator real power from the generating stations to the load center, you have to maintain the voltage. You have to maintain the voltage. You have to provide voltage support. Then only it will flow from the generating station to the load center. While doing so, you have to ensure that 0% flow of reactive power. That is the ideal condition. Unity power factor everywhere. What is that? Unity power factor everywhere. So there will not be any reactive power flow at any point in the power system. But practically it is very difficult. If you take your transmission line model for long distance, what happens? For every unit length you have some inductor and the shunt capacitor. So within that where it will be circulating. So if you are going for that distributed parameter model, under ideal condition, if you want to nullify the reactive power flow with that unit length what you are considering, within that the reactive power has to circulate. It should not go beyond that. Or one of the important parameter when coming to the transmission line, you might have heard about surge impedance loading. What is surge impedance loading? Any idea? What is surge impedance loading? Assume that there is a transmission line from Neyveli to Chennai. Its operating voltage is 230 volts. What is its operating voltage? 230 volts. And I am asking you where there is a generator at the Neyveli power station and the transmission line length is some 300 km, and these are all the line parameters, resistance, inductance, capacitance. You use pi model or P model, whatever may be the thing. And I am asking you to calculate regulation. You might have completed those things in the transmission and distribution. So what will happen from there while coming to the receiving end, where there will be a variations in the voltage. Am I correct or wrong? Suppose if it is 230 kV at the Neyveli power station, what will be the voltage here at the load center Chennai? Let us say 200, 220, 210, anything depends on the loading condition. But if you have the line loading, equal to the surge impedance loading, if you have line loading equal to the surge impedance loading, what will happen? The voltage at the sending end, voltage at the receiving end, or at any point of the transmission line, it will be 230 kV. Are you able to follow? If you are transferring the power at surge impedance loading, what is the significance? Voltage at the sending end, or for every 1 kilometer you measure anywhere, it will be equal to 230 kV. Why it is so? If you are loading to surge impedance condition, surge impedance loading condition, you know that distributed parameter model, you consider any unit length. So within that, whatever may be the LNC, the reactive power will flow only within the LNC. It will not go to the next element. Are you able to follow? So that means the reactive power transfer will be almost 100%. It is zero. There is no transfer of reactive power. But if it is less than surge impedance loading, the voltage will increase, and if it is greater than surge impedance loading, the voltage will decrease. So there is no significant value of reactive power. The only problem with the AC is we have the instead of resistor, like in DC we have inductor and capacitor. So this reactive power will flow only between the energy storing elements to create the magnetic field or those things. So it will not be useful for doing any useful work. We are utilizing or consuming only real power. Reactive power is required to provide voltage support. It is required to provide voltage support. Other than that, there is no use of it. And as an operator, what is your role? You have to minimize the reactive power flow within the network. Ideal condition means 0% reactive power flow. Everywhere you have to maintain unity power factor. But it is difficult. Practically it is not viable. So we have to minimize the reactive power. So the difference is only real power is the useful power where all the loads are consuming. Reactive power is simply circulating between the energy storing elements like inductor and the capacitor. And our objective is we have to curtail the power flow, reactive power flow through the entire network. And that's why it is covered in the unit 3, voltage and reactive power. QV control. What is the QV control? QV control is carried out with the help of automatic voltage regulator. I think you might have completed your electrical machines 2 laboratory. Am I correct or wrong? Yes. There you might have carried out the open circuit characteristics on 3-phase alternator. Can you explain what you did in that experiment? What you did while conducting the OCC characteristics experiment? What you did? Broad idea. Sir, I did this, I did this. No idea. Initially, we will keep the excitation at 0. We will keep the field rheostat. Field rheostat move panni, you will be watching the voltmeter reading. Initially, you will be keeping the rheostat position at 0. That is the minimum. It will be acting as potential divider or whatever may be the thing. You will keep it at 0. So the field current will be 0. At that time, is there any voltage? Terminal voltage? If your prime mover is revolving at rated speed, have you observed any output voltage or not? There will be some small residual voltage. There will be some small residual voltage. Why it is happening? Because of the residual magnetism. Because of the electromagnetic process. Whenever you are giving excitation, where there is a electromagnet. So all the materials what we are using is of having some magnetic property within the machine. So due to that, even with 0 excitation, where there will be some induced voltage, we will be calling that as residual voltage. Around the OCC curve first we straight varanjiruvom, appuram keela light bend panni, we will write that is residual voltage. Even without measuring, we will write some 20 volts or 30 volts. Even if your voltmeter in semester, if voltmeter is not showing any reading, that doesn't mean that you will start from 0. It is not accepted. Simply you will start from 20 or 30. You are able to follow? Then what happens? After taking that residual voltage, we will keep on increase the field excitation. We will keep on increase the field excitation. So while increasing the excitation, where the voltage will vary. So for example, initially residual voltage is 30, then you will observe the voltage of 50, 75, 100, 120, 140, 160. So according to your requirement for plotting the graph, you will take more number of readings, and after some time where there will be a saturation. After some time where there will be a saturation, where the output voltage will not increase beyond that. And at that time, suppose if I am asking you, can you show the field current value for for output voltage of some 150? Is it possible to get that voltage current or not? If I am asking you, when the output terminal voltage is 150 volts, what is the field current? Can you bring that reading means whether you will do that or not? You can do it. So there in that electrical lab, you are acting as the automatic voltage regulator. What you are doing? You are acting as the AVR. How you are acting as AVR? Your eyes look into that voltmeter reading. So suppose if you need 150 volts, if the available voltage is 140, what you will do? You will adjust the field rheostat to increase the field current. So if you are increasing the field current, the voltage will increase from 140 to 150. Or if it is going to 160, you will reduce the field current. So now what action you are performing in the lab, that will be automated in the generating station. That will be automated in the generating station. So there they will feed the reference voltage. They will feed 11 kV. Once if they are feeding 11 kV, what is that complete circuit? There will be a potential transformer. So that with that whatever the voltage you are getting, that will be compared with the reference voltage. Based on this error, you will increase or you will decrease the excitation. So how you are doing in the electrical machines lab, in the same way that we have the automatic closed loop control system. You are able to visualize that. So it is one of the simplest blocks where we are very well aware. The thing is, already you have completed that experiment, just you are reading now theoretically. One of the modeling requirements there in the AVR is only the generator model. Am I correct or wrong? Other thing, comparator, amplifier. Comparator simply you will be putting a summing junction, amplifier, some gain divided by some with some time constant. That's all. Then exciter, generator. You will close the block. Are you able to visualize? It is one of the simple block diagram for arrangement of exciter, all those things. And that question is repeating almost in all the university questions. So if you are reading that question, it will be a sure end semester question. Maybe the real power and frequency, where you have different concepts. One is based on the regulation, where you have to go for parallel operation of generator and you have to find out the load sharing, and even block diagram derivation, single area, two area, with tri-line bias control, all those things you have to move out. But while coming to this reactive power and voltage control, what is the advantage? This question will be ensured 99.95 times. Only 1% there may be there. Some extreme people, they may not cover. Am I correct? Or you refer any university question paper in the third unit, without that question you cannot find the questions. So that much important is there, because that is the only important question in that unit 3. And understanding the concept, it is not much complex. Compare the voltage, so comparator is there. Then amplifier, Ka by 1 plus Sta, then exciter, generator, once again feedback, that's all. Are you able to visualize that? I think those things also may be covered already. Whether if you have any specific doubts or I am unable to this part or that part, because now already you are at the verge of completing this syllabus. So now you can raise the questions or this I am unable to understand this part or that part, means I will explain to you. Whether you have any specific doubts regarding this AVR, automatic voltage regulator. And while coming to this automatic voltage regulator, don't assume that it is only meant for the generator. So AVR means it is not only for the generator. Wherever you have reactive power source, you can have automatic voltage regulator. For example, one of the things will be the tap changing transformer. Have you heard about the tap changing transformer? There are two types of tap changing transformer. One is on-load tap changing, the other one is off-load tap changing. What is the difference? Why we are calling one as on-load and other one is off-load? What is the difference?
While changing load, we have to show.
If it is on-load tap changing transformer, which is equipped with the AVR, are you able to follow? If it is on-load tap changing transformer, it has inbuilt AVR. If it is off-load, manually for every month or every week, depending on your requirement, you will adjust the tap steps. Are you able to follow what is the difference? If it is on-load tap changing transformer, where there will be a AVR. What is the function of AVR? It will sense the bus voltage where you have connected. If the voltage is less than the rated voltage or your reference value, accordingly it will adjust the tap steps. If a single stepper motor or some other motor will drive the movements, so that the number of steps will be increased, tap steps, or it will be reduced, so that the voltage will be maintained at the required value. Are you able to follow? On load, the other meaning with loads. When the power flow is there, where there will be a tap adjustment. Off load means we will not take you for AVRs. But what is the use of this kind of tap step adjustment? For example, during the winter, where always there will be over voltage, so you will reduce number of tap steps. And now we are moving towards summer, so seasonally, just the operator who is working there in the substation, he will increase the number of tap steps. And while coming on to the city like Chennai, in most of the substation where we have the arrangement of the auto transformer models, what they will do, during the lightly loaded condition, they will reduce the number of tap steps. During the heavily loaded condition, they will increase the number of taps. Every day, morning, afternoon, evening, for every 1 hour, they will check the voltage. Accordingly, they will adjust the tap steps. And here also, you have to see some other issue. But nowadays, we are not facing that problem. Before some 10 years or 15 years or so, normally for these kind of fluorescent lamps, we don't have electronic choke. We are able to follow. Nowadays, we have electronic choke. Even whatever may be the voltage, you can turn on this fluorescent lamp as like any other incandescent lamps. But, before some 15 years also, what will happen? Whenever the load reaches peak condition, voltage will decrease, and we may not able to turn on these fluorescent lamps. Are you able to follow? And that is also one of the tricks followed by the operator. Even here in our TNA grade, whenever it reaches peak load, the operator will reduce the voltage voluntarily. Why he has to reduce? Because, for example, you are not able to operate some of the equipment like air conditioning equipment. They are able to follow. They will reduce intentionally, and you cannot complain that I don't have power. Power will be there, but most of the equipment will not work. So that is also one of the strategy. Immediately they have followed after 2007. Whenever there is a consumer complaint, it is very difficult. So to avoid that, what they did, they have operated the system with low voltages, so that they will ensure that the air conditioning equipment which is consuming more power, so these devices will not work. But for that, the remedy what it is there, we will go for double booster or whatever may be the other possibilities are there, we will utilize on the consumer side. Are you able to visualize these points? Any other topics you have studied in this unit of reactive power and voltage control, or if you are unable to visualize? So here there are two major topics in this syllabus. One is real power and frequency control, reactive power and voltage control. But while coming to from the name itself, real power, where it is the useful power which is consumed by the load, and while coming to the reactive power, it is nowhere consumed, only it is circulating within the LNC, within the circuit. The objective of the operator is to minimize the circulation of the reactive power within the circuit. Why we have to minimize the circulation of the reactive power within the circuit? Because it is nowhere useful except providing the voltage support. So for that purpose, we need reactive power support here and there, and with that, we have to manage unity power factor for the efficient system operation. Or the other words, where if you are maintaining the unity power factor, at that situation you will get minimum loss, minimum real power loss. As you might have heard that in our country or in our state, if you are generating 100 megawatt, what is the power consumed by the consumers? Generators are there. If they are generating 100 megawatt, what is the power consumed by the loads? It will consume only 70 megawatt. Suppose if the peak demand here in our state is 15,000 megawatt, how much you have to generate as an operator? 15,000 plus 15,000 into 0.3 you have to generate. You are able to follow? About 20,000 you have to generate if you want to deliver 14 to 15,000 megawatt of load. So you see the loss. If you are consuming 1 kilowatt, 300 watts is accounted as loss. So for that also we have to pay. So that 30% is a huge amount that they have to reduce. That is one of the important factors. And to reduce that real power loss, the mandatory requirement is avoiding the reactive power circulation. And in the olden days, which is very difficult, but nowadays it is much easier. If you are visiting any industry, you can ask them, what about the power factor? Whatever may be the industry, they have to maintain the power factor above 0.85. If your industry consumes power below 0.85 power factor, where you will get huge penalty for that. And if you are operating your industry above 0.95, where you will be rewarded. Why they are doing so? Because if you are not consuming, if you are helping to curtail the reactive power flow in the network, which will reduce the real power loss. one of the perennial problem in our state is agricultural loads. Why? All the agricultural loads were induction motor. So induction motor will operate the power factor with some 0.6 or 0.7. So and it is covering the vast geographical area. So that's why they are facing plenty of problems with respect to the voltage and all in the rural areas. It's very difficult to maintain the voltage because most of the loads will be of agricultural nature and they will consume power without any compensation because there is no metering. So that's why they are suffering. Then the last unit which is mandatory for the operators in the power system is computer control, which is SCADA and energy EMS, energy monitoring system. Have you gone through the syllabus? Any basic idea about that? Which is one of the simplest topic in this syllabus because there is no problems. So unit 1, 2, 3, 4, all the units where they can cover problems. Possibilities are there. Unit 1 to 4 where minimum you should learn some of the problems. But only in unit 5 where there is no problems at all. But what you will be studying there, one of the major thing will be the SCADA, supervisory control and data acquisition system, where one hardware architecture will be there. So the basic requirement there it is a computer, primary and backup computers. So from the remote terminal unit, whatever will be the information you are passing, there that will be fed to the state estimator. What is state estimator? It will give the correct state of the system, state estimation. It will give you the correct state of the system, and the data will be stored in the computer, and the operator in the energy control center he will use those data to run some load flow or whatever may be the programs he want to study. He will use those information including unit commitment, because energy management is one of the major issue for the operator in the energy control center. So the information collected through the SCADA system will be used like this. And apart from that, if you have well-equipped closed loop control, where you can implement the economic dispatch controller as well as this AVR control through the SCADA itself. But right now we don't have such facilities, but it is possible to have closed loop control. SCADA means it will be of having closed loop control. But normally we are not having so far, because if it is closed loop control, the complexity will be extremely difficult under severe load conditions. If it is a automatic one, it will take decisions then and there. So it is difficult for the operator to interfere with that operation. So normally we have monitoring system, but we are not going for the closed loop. Monitoring means power flow through the transmission lines, power generation from all the generators. Each generator, what is the power output, you can see from your energy control center. But so far we are not controlled. But in other countries, even that also. So what is the yeah. No, now the entire southern grid also you can see. What are maybe the highlight of the yeah, Chennai Mount Road head office. You can get the permission because they permit the 20 students at a time for about some 20 or 25 minutes. Even if you are going in the afternoon, from 3 o'clock, you can finish that visit within 2 hours. You can see how they are monitoring and how they are controlling the frequency. You know how the operator is managing the minute by minute power balance in Tamil Nadu? We have one of the best spinning reserve unit which is located at Kadamparai. What is reserve? You have different categories of reserve: installed reserve, spinning reserve, cold reserve and hot reserve. What is installed reserve? Suppose if the demand is 10,000 megawatt, if you have a generation capacity of 20,000 megawatt, so the difference will be the installed reserve. That is not a big issue. But the other thing, spinning reserve. What is spinning reserve? The generators were synchronized with the grid. Whenever you need power, within a minute or within some 10 minutes, you can draw the power from that specific unit. That is called a spinning reserve. Spinning reserve means it is synchronized to the grid. The next one, hot reserve. What is hot reserve? You might have studied in unit 1. Many times they will ask me about different reserve requirements in the power system. Hot reserve means where the generator's boiler temperature and pressure will be maintained. What they will do? They will burn the fuel and they will maintain the boiler pressure and temperature. Suppose if there is a need of power within some 20 minutes or half an hour, they will start the machine, or